What prompted me to write this book? Well, to be honest, our children both left home in exactly the same week. It was a total surprise to us because one was 18 off to university and the other was 12. Decided she wasn't going to hang around with him not around, so she went to boarding school. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, my husband and I, who thought we'd had at least another few years with them, were empty nesters, quite by surprise. And what happens when your children leave home, I'm sure many of you will appreciate this, is that there's this massive void suddenly. Things that you've talked about and you've worried about and you've shared are suddenly no longer there. And I looked at him across the kitchen worktop and I thought, what are we going to talk about for the next 30 years if we don't have the children on our minds constantly or under our feet? So he's an architect, so naturally, my question was, let's build a house, or, let's do a project together. You've got the skills, you could do the house, I could do the garden, it'd be fun. And he wasn't that keen at first, to be honest, but I just thought, we need something that binds us together, that gives us something to talk about and to enjoy doing together, to plan, to get excited about, to design, to have fun with, and something then that we could pass on to the children, if and ever they wanted it, and to their children. And a lovely place to retire to, and to get away from these, cold, grey London winters. So anyway, that's what we did. Off we went, and we bought this plot of land, a large one, which was a bit stupid. I'd never looked after anything bigger than this sort of size, small London plots, and I'm very keen on gardens, but I'm really not very good, so we didn't know what to do. Anyway, he designed this Moorish house, which made a lot of sense, being in Andalusia in the south of Spain. It had a very Moroccan, North African influence, lovely. And then I picked up Penelope Hobhouse's book on Persian gardens, and it all became clear, and I was inspired, because there, in the Quran, no less, is the recipe for how you create a Persian garden and how you lay down the foundations for a paradise on earth. I mean, this just sounded wonderful. It was all clear. You had to have a garden divided into 4 parts. You had to have running water, gushing water, still water. You had to have 4 very definite plants, so citrus, pomegranate, figs, olives. It was just so easy. It also said you had to have rivers of wine and honey and milk and water. Wasn't sure how to represent those, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. Of course, what happens then is that you embark upon a great adventure, thinking this is going to bind us together, and actually, after 6 very long, very testing years, it had tested our relationship. It had, I suppose, drawn big gaps between us. It had caused us to argue, to row, to uncover, I suppose, the big fissures that can exist in a marriage, which until it's really tested, you don't know there. You sort of paper over the cracks and muddle through. Well, you can't do that with a project this size, so it really tested us. And the things that happened were quite simply unpredictable, and not all of them our fault, but the first thing that happened is that the land that we scraped off the top of the platform, because we bought this gorgeous 360-degree mountain top, really panoramic views, just splendid, in the most stunning countryside. There was a few landslips and a few landslides, nothing treacherous, but the neighbour below us sued us for damage to his olive groves. I don't know if there was much, but he did. And another neighbour said, if you don't buy my plot of land right next to yours, I'm going to put a dog kennel on it with 20 barking dogs day and night and a corrugated roof and plastic buckets everywhere. And then the irrigation system we put in just stopped working because the gardener didn't quite know how to operate it. And the whole planning process ground to a halt at the town hall because the mayor of Marbella and various other officials in the state of Andalusia had been thrown in jail for taking backhanders from developers. So everything went into paralysis, and then the recession hit, and the whole thing just ground to a halt. So it was tough, the garden sort of thrived, but we weren't sure we were doing the right thing. The house ground to a halt. And it tests you, it really, really tests you. And at that point it became quite obvious to me that gardening is a metaphor for marriage. And I mean, there's simple things like you have to accept, and this is one of the lessons I've learned, you have to accept that nature will do her thing and you're not always in control. You get very fatalistic as a gardener, I think, anyone will tell you that, and you begin to appreciate those things which are within your gift to change or to amend or to nurture, and those things which is nothing to do with you. Nature will sort it out, whether she likes you or not, she'll just sort it out somehow. And so that's a very good lesson to learn when you're dealing with another human being. Some things are within your control and some things aren't. You learn also patience, tremendous lessons in patience in this project. It teaches you to just wait and see, not to be too hasty with people or with gardens, not to be too willing to jump to conclusions or to make a decision or to move on, when in fact the best may be yet to come, or the decision can't be made in the absence of information. So it teaches you, I suppose, that maturity of being willing to wait for delayed gratification. And I suppose the other things that I've learned are that you can make mistakes from time to time, and it's okay. The world doesn't fall apart, when you argue or disagree or when there's constant stress. It doesn't. Somehow you get through it. And a garden is a bit the same. You'll plant things and they'll die, they'll fail. So these are really important lessons, I think, for anyone embarking upon a large gardening project or indeed a marriage. So anyway, that's why I wrote the book. I've learned an awful lot, and I hope that those of you who buy it and read it will agree and write to me and tell me what lessons you've learned. I'd be very interested.